Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so I am going to get started with the remote script. Good evening. This is the January 12th, 2021 meeting of the Board of Selectmen. As a preliminary matter, this is Beth Cassavant, Chair. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. John LeBeau.
Present.
John Samia.
Present.
Maurice DiPaolo.
Present.
James Kane.
Present.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Kevin Mizikar.
Present.
Valerie Clemmy. Anticipated speakers on the agenda. When I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Imad Benjamin.
Present.
Jean Richard. I think that's Jean. Not sure. Yeah, okay, waving at me. Great, thank you. This open meeting of the Board of Selectmen is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Board of Selectmen is convening by Google Meet as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will introduce each board member or staff member who has the lead role for the particular item or guest speaker associated with the item on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members first and then to staff members, inviting each to provide any comments or questions. I will then call upon members to offer a motion and then a second. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute and unmute your phone by pressing *6 or mute your computer when you are not speaking so as not to trigger your camera feed with background noise. Finally, each vote taken will be conducted by roll call vote. So I'm going to move to the first item on the agenda, which is to approve the bills, payrolls, and warrants.
Approval. Second.
A motion was made and seconded. Mr. LeBeau.
Aye.
Mr. Samia.
Aye.
Mr. DiPaolo.
Aye.
Mr. Kane.
Aye.
And myself, aye. The second is to approve the minutes of the December 22nd, 2020 meeting.
Move approval. Second.
Mr. LeBeau.
Aye.
Mr. Samia.
Aye.
Mr. DiPaolo.
Aye.
Mr. Kane. You still there? Okay, and myself, aye. Okay, I'm going to move on to item number 3, which is announcements and reports. Do any board members have anything to announce this evening?
Madam Chairman? Oh, go ahead, Mr. Kane.
No, go right ahead, Mr. DiPaolo.
No. You go first.
All right, well, thank you very much. As you all know by now, by my filing of 2 communications, one with the Beal Building Committee and one with the Board of Selectmen, I will be leaving the Beal Building Committee at the end of the March meeting as a result of my decision to not run for re-election to the Board of Selectmen and instead seek the open position of town moderator. I do this in several months in advance so that the board has ample time to talk amongst itself, see who would like to take my position as the board's representative on the building committee, and that person can then choose to sit in on as many as the January, February, and March meetings, which I think will ensure a complete transition of what I've been up to for the board, as well as further conversations with Kevin. And God, everything is, we want to keep it going in that direction. So I think by making this announcement well in advance, it'll afford you folks time to consider who would like to take my slot on that building committee. So having said that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Mr. DiPaolo?
Yes, I just wanted to take a minute to update the board on the police station building committee's work. We met late yesterday afternoon. We took about a month and a half hiatus with the holidays and waiting for approval from the state to go with the construction manager at risk model. That is in process. We don't have final approval yet, but we anticipate getting it soon. We did put out solicitations for construction manager at risk, and we had 9 respondents. And it looks like they were all good contractors, which is good. We have a subcommittee that is going to review those 9 proposals, and then they will recommend 3 to 4 to the complete committee for a final negotiation and consideration. And we expect that the schedule now that we should have a vote on who we will select by February 16th. The tentative schedule is, well, actually the schematic plans are being refined as they really start getting into the detail of what's going to go where. Those should be complete by February 16th also. And then moving forward, the final design development documents should be ready, completed in July. Site clearing and foundation work is supposed to commence in mid-July, and building construction is expected to follow in August. So we're moving along on the schedule. There were site borings that were scheduled to start today. As a matter of fact, as they get into the start moving towards final design of the building. And that's basically it, except the committee would like to come into our second meeting in February, which I believe is February 23rd, to give a more full report of where we are, because quite a bit will have been done in that period of time. So that's where we are. If anybody has any questions, I can try to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. DiPaolo. Any questions from the board? I have just one. During your meetings, do you discuss at all the public safety radio communication system? How does that fit into what you're doing? I know that was part of the project.
It's kind of separate from the project, but it's part of the project because of the interconnectivity. So it is discussed, but it's more of how it's going to be accommodated into the building, I believe. It's actually, and Mr. Mizikar can correct me if I'm wrong, it's actually an independent contract. It's going to be from the police station, but they have to make sure that, you know, the stuff that needs to be integrated between the two will be incorporated into the building design.
Thank you.
Yep.
There's no other announcements or questions. I have 2 announcements to make. One is that the board would like to recognize the passing of Sergeant Stephen Fosher, who joined the Shrewsbury Police Department in 1973 and retired as sergeant in 1988. He leaves behind a large family, including Shrewsbury Police Sergeant David Fosher, his son. The board extends their condolences to Sergeant Fosher's family. And I'd also like to announce on a more happy note that Mike McGinnis retired from the Shrewsbury Police Department after 33 years of service. Mike started his career as a dispatcher in 1987 and later served as a detective and patrolman. His most remembered role may be that of Santa Claus at the annual Patrolman's Toy Drive, and the board would like to extend their thanks and congratulations to Mike on his retirement. So that brings us to item number 4 on the agenda, which is the town manager's report. Mr. Mizikar.
Good evening, board members. I have a few items to update you on in my report this evening. Picking up off of where Mr. DiPaolo ended his comments, site borings did begin today in the area where the new station will be constructed. So that work is underway. Since our last meeting, which was December 22nd, I did want to just ensure that everyone was aware that the federal stimulus package that was finally signed into law, although it did not have any new funding for municipal operations, it did include an extension of the ability to use our original allotment of CARES Act funding through December 31st, 2021. So through the end of this calendar year, which is a significant development for us. Board members will recall from my last presentation, we had about $1.2 million still in hand, and having those funds continue will enable us to continue to provide the level of services, mainly within the schools, to provide adequate cleaning to ensure that they're able to continue with the hybrid model as long as possible, and hopefully through the end of the school year at least. Just a couple other points that I wanted to make, because there's some community discussion about it on various means. Two significant pieces of land within the community. The first is Centec North, which is the Allen farmland off of South Street, Route 20, owned by the town. The members of the public will recall that the Board of Selectmen voted to transfer this land in accordance with the 2002 special legislation to create the SDC to the SDC. And subsequent to that transfer, the Shrewsbury Development Corporation has entered into a purchase and sales agreement with a third-party developer. During the due diligence period, that developer and the SDC have agreed to keep things quiet about the potential, and that will really just prevent any extra hopes from coming to be if the site doesn't meet the expectations of that potential developer. I think we're all eager to be able to learn of who the developer is and share that with the public, and we will certainly do that as soon as possible. So folks may see some site work going on that parcel of land, and it is again just due diligence by a third-party developer. So and finally, there's two separate parcels off of Route 20, the Stony Hill 40B development that most folks are familiar with that term. There's two separate parcels, one further to the west, one to the east. The west portion of the lot was cleared about a year ago, and now clearing has begun on the east. And I know it's not always a welcome sign for individuals to see significant forested area cleared. However, all work is being done with the oversight of the town, both Conservation Commission and the Engineering Department, and it is all being done in accordance with the permits that are in place, which are valid through December 20th of 2021 this year. So that project is progressing and moving forward, and the town will continue to oversee that and ensure that everything remains within the regulatory guidelines. And that's all I have in my general report.
Madam
If I
Chairman,
may, go ahead, Mr. King.
I just have one question to the manager. As I recall, the 40B had two parts. One has been sold to someone who's doing what they can do at their own risk, I suppose. I'm still puzzled as to how can a project that's permitted as two sell half of itself and then still proceed. Could you help me understand how that can happen?
So I think you used the phrase already, but everything that we understand that may be going on out there, and we have heard of another developer being interested in the west parcel, is being done at 100% risk. In order to come back and actually enable that to happen, the original 40B permit would have to be reconsidered for both the east and obviously the west parcel. If it's a commercial or industrial type use on the west parcel, that's an as of right. And they would have to get building permits and site plan approval, those things. But yeah, so everything, if it's not in accordance with the original plan, is being done at risk at this time, and should more than site work or due diligence begin with anything that's not in accordance with the existing permit, the town would have to step in and stop it. But we haven't seen that at this point.
Okay, I must admit I remain puzzled how one can permit two sites for a unique purpose on the state and local level, sell one of those sites to someone who allegedly is going to build something as of right, and then move ahead with an element of like half the project. I'm puzzled by that. I take it that your office has conferred with council, et cetera, and from what you know of it, it seems to be going in accordance. But I must admit, I would appreciate at a future meeting or at some point further information as to how one takes a project, cuts itself in half, and then proceeds, even though it admits it and has to come back in and start over with permitting. Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to take a moment to just acknowledge what you had said, Mr. Mizikar, about the CARES Act funding being extended through the end of this calendar year. And this board did send a letter to our Washington delegation advocating for the use of that funding to be extended because it is critical to our ongoing operations, especially in keeping our schools open. And I just wanted to extend a quick thank you to Congressman McGovern for advocating on behalf of that request. Okay, that brings us to item number 5, which is the coronavirus and COVID-19 report from the town manager.
I'm going to share my screen at this time. So updates on the total number of positive cases. As I previously mentioned, your last meeting was on December 22nd. Since that time, we've seen an increase of 627 additional positive cases within the community, bringing the new total to 1,951. We continue to remain in red status in accordance with the state's weekly report. We have an occurrence of 66.4 per 100,000, which is an increase of 1.7, and a positivity increase of 9.01, which is an increase of 1.36. We continue to share total positive cases every weekday and report the weekend results with Monday's new cases if there are any. Unfortunately, since your last meeting, we've been advised of 5 additional COVID-19 indicated deaths, bringing the total deaths to 53. With regards to the status of town buildings, we are closed to the public. We're working through a hybrid model of employees on-site and off-site. And I'm also happy to report that our first responders started receiving their vaccinations yesterday, January 11th, through our critical partnership with the Central Mass Regional Public Health Alliance. I was happy to see earlier today that Governor Charlie Baker and Shrewsbury's own Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito were at that site and touring it and meeting with the Central Mass Regional Public Health Alliance staff and other officials as first responders were vaccinated on that site. So look at the monthly numbers. Obviously, we're in the height of a winter surge. November having 268 cases. December, having 530 more cases than November, and unfortunately, January is outpacing December through the first 12 days on a daily count basis. So. Certainly seeing a continued increase in the total number of monthly cases as we moved into the winter months. The 7, 14, 30, and 60-day trends, again, continue to be troubling. The 7-day trend shows 234 cases. The 7-day period at your last meeting was only 161 cases over the 7-day period. Previous 14 being 466, which is 100 more than the 14 days prior to your last meeting. 30 days, 837 cases, in 60 days. It's quite shocking to see that although we only have 1,900 cases, 1,356 of them have occurred within the last 60 days. So with regards to the curve, I would like to be encouraged by that downward trend, but unfortunately, as I mentioned at your last meeting on the 22nd, there was an apparent downward trend. that didn't come to fruition. You can see we can continue to climb from the 22nd through the 24th and into the new year. We have had a couple days this past week where we've only seen 12 and 13 cases, which is causing that dip. But if you look on both sides of that dip, we had 44 additional reported cases today, 31 on Saturday, and 57 on Friday. So still very significant numbers, with our new daily high of 57 coming within the last week. Looking at the age analysis, I actually wondered whether I should continue to report on this, because the percentages are getting beyond any percentages that are rational. With regards to the lowest age bracket of 0 to 19, we've seen 351 additional cases since we started to see an uptick after the summer months, looking back to early September. Certainly every age bracket has more than doubled since that time, but the growth is quite remarkable within the lower age bracket. So that's the end of my general COVID report this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Board members, any questions for Mr. Mizikar? The numbers are just sobering. Thank you for the report. I just look forward to the day when those numbers start going in the other direction. I hope that we can all stay vigilant, even though it's tiresome to continue to follow public health guidance. I do hear optimism from people that I trust in the media that say if we can hang on for 2 more months and get through this, the vaccine will start helping and we should see some improvement. That brings us to item number 6, which we are going to skip over for right now and just include in the discussion with item number 10. So we'll move on to item number 7, which is to review the revised FY22 budget timeline.
Board members, I've included in your drive this evening a couple updates to our original schedule. And I admit that we could have had a better schedule from the outset. One key date that I missed, unfortunately, is found within our bylaws, which requires the town manager to produce a balanced budget 60 days in advance of the annual town meeting. So I had originally planned to produce that budget on March 9th, but unfortunately that doesn't meet the parameters. So we had to move that date back to February 16th. So most specifically within this calendar, I'll talk about the highlighted dates. So on January 26th, I'll be able to provide the board with a quick snapshot of the total departmental budget requests, what departments believe that they need to provide level services in fiscal year 22. And that'll give us at least an initial look at cuts that we may need to make on the town side. Thereafter, at your meeting on February 9th, I'll do a more comprehensive preliminary budget review, being about 1 week in advance of the publication of the first balanced budget for fiscal year 22. And then on February 23rd, I'll provide a more comprehensive presentation of those final initial numbers that will be relied upon through the Finance Committee budget hearing process, which will occur in the month of March, at least as I've laid it out in my schedule. Finance Committee will be meeting on January 21st to review this schedule and other matters for their proceedings leading up to the May 17th annual town meeting.
Thank you. Any questions on the schedule? All right, very good. That brings us to item number 8 under meetings and hearings, which is a 7:05 continued public hearing with Imad Benjamin, owner of Ramsey Inc., doing business as J&M Market, 117 Clinton Street, for a wine and malt beverages package store license. Hours of operation Sunday 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Saturday 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Welcome back, Mr. Benjamin. I know that at our last opportunity to meet with you, there were some items that needed to be adjusted and just updated in your application. And I believe that you've taken care of all of those things.
Thank you.
So, board members, those of you that had questions, I think you'll find that any of the outstanding issues have been resolved. Are there any further questions for Mr. Benjamin?
Madam Chairman,
Mr. DiPaolo?
I just want to say, yes, all the questions that I had have been resolved. And I think the application's all set.
Thank you.
Mr. Sammy, I see you nodding. I know that you had some questions as well. Are you comfortable with the application as it stands now?
Yes, I agree. Everything's been answered. I appreciate the applicant coming back and fixing the application to address the concerns that we had. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If it is a public hearing, are there any members of the public wishing to be heard on this matter? If you are on a phone, it would be *6 to unmute yourself. Okay. I'm not hearing anyone. So board members,
Madam Chair,
Mr. LeBeau.
move we close the hearing. Second.
Okay, a motion has been made to close the hearing. Mr. LeBeau,
Aye.
Mr. Samia,
Aye.
Mr. DiPaolo,
Aye.
Mr. Kane. And myself, aye. So the hearing is closed. Any further discussion from the board? Okay, there being none,
Madam Chair.
Mr. LeBeau.
Madam Chair, I move the board approve the license application of Imad Benjamin Ramsey Inc., doing business as J&M Market, 117 Clinton Street, for an alcohol, wine, and malt license. Hours of operation Sunday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Second.
No further discussion. Mr. LeBeau.
Aye.
Mr. Samia.
Aye.
Mr. DiPaolo.
Aye.
Mr. Kane.
Aye.
Myself, aye. All right, congratulations and best of luck with your business. You can connect with the town manager's office on getting any paperwork that you need.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to thank you all, and I want to thank everybody working with me, and thank you very much.
Happy to have you setting up in Shrewsbury. Thanks very much, sir. Good evening.
Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, board members, that brings us to item number 9, which is a 7:10 p.m. meeting with Price Chopper Operating Company of Massachusetts, Inc., doing business as Price Chopper number 229, 733 Boston Turnpike, regarding an application for a change of officers, directors, LLC managers to their Section 15 all alcohol package store license. And I believe we have a representative with us from Price Chopper.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm Gene Richard, attorney for the applicant, licensee. Some housekeeping today. A member of the corporate board of the licensee and an officer has retired. So he is being replaced as a director by Stephen Spielman. And he's being replaced as secretary by Carrie Terrafirma, who actually was the assistant secretary. So we're asking for approval of those changes. There should be no changes seen at the store level, and no changes in operations at all, or with ownership for that matter. So that's why we're here, and we would ask you to approve that.
Okay, thank you. Seems to be very straightforward and the paperwork seems to be in order. Any questions from the board? Okay,
Madam Chair.
Mr. LeBeau.
Madam Chair, I move the board approve the application for an amended license for Price Chopper Operating Company of Massachusetts for Price Chopper 229 at 733 Boston Turnpike for a change of officers as put forward in the application. Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. There's no further discussion. Mr. LeBeau.
Aye.
Mr. Samia,
Aye.
Mr. DiPaolo,
Aye.
Mr. Kane,
Aye.
myself, aye. Mr. Richard, you're all set. Thanks
Thank you
very
very
much
much.
for coming in this evening. Have a
Thank
good
you as
night.
well. Night.
Okay, under new business, item number 10 is to review and act on the approval of the award of bonds associated with the police station and public safety radio system project. Mr. Mizikar.
Good evening, board members. Again, I'm going to share my screen and walk through a quick presentation. As we talk about the general obligation bond sale this evening that occurred today, bids were due by 11 a.m. This included funding, roughly 90% of the funding for the police station and public radio system project and the Cellco fiber to the home project. As we skipped over item 6 on the agenda, very pleased, very happy, and encouraged that Standard & Poor's Global Rating Services has affirmed our AAA bond rating and provided us with a stable outlook. We don't often spend a lot of time congratulating ourselves, but I think this is so important. A couple lines from their report, citing our very strong budgetary reserves and flexibility and well-embedded financial management policies, particularly in the areas of budget and planning, which should mitigate any significant credit deterioration throughout the pandemic. Certainly, it's very interesting to go through a bond rating process during a global pandemic and to see that a very well-respected company recognizes the fact that we have stable management and financial policies that were put in place by this board. A little bit further, supporting the long-term rating of strong economic growth and steady operating results. And we believe good financial management and collaboration throughout all the government departments provides a robust budget and planning framework that underpins the strong credit profile. It's always very interested, although maybe events of recent make it a little less significant, but for the town to have a higher credit rating than the nation as a whole. They believe that we are more resilient to stress factors like general economic recessions and impacts of the pandemic in comparison to the national government. So very pleased to thank the members of the board for your continued leadership in the financial policies and your thoughtful discussion as we work through every budget process. So very pleased with the AAA bond rating. Moving on to the bond sale, and a little bit more nuts and bolts. We did request 90% of the feasibility design estimate for the police station and public safety radio project. Folks will recall we requested $42 million borrowing authorization, and we wanted to secure as much of that because we felt that the interest rates would be good if we hit the market at this time. And then Cellco is drawing down upon their entire borrowing authorization of $15 million that they received at the August 8th annual town meeting. So we requested from the market, in addition to closing or issuance costs, $52,125,000. In our pre-sale estimate for the police station and public radio system, we are expecting the market to yield a total cost for principal and interest for a 20-year borrowing for that $37 million to be about $44.5 million. Just want to review with the board a couple of our recent issuances, the Beale Elementary School being the first issuance that we had, $55.7 million issuance with a AAA bond rating and 2.28%. The 2016 library issuance at 227, and Sherwood $20 million issuance in 2011, 3.589. So that's what made me almost fall out of my chair this afternoon. We got to report that Morgan Stanley, who is the most advantageous bidder for our Beale project as well, came in with a total interest cost for this issuance of 1.419%. Really unfathomable numbers. Even whenever we issued Beal, we never thought we could get lower than we had for Beal, given the economic climate in 2019. And we just see these unbelievable numbers today. What does that really mean for our bottom line? So using our projected pre-sale estimate of 44.5 million, our actual principal and interest that will play out over the next 22 years is 42.437 million. So a total savings of almost $2.1 million for 90% of this borrowing. So extremely good results. And we are very aggressive with the estimate that we used for our pre-sale estimate. We used 1.90%, which have otherwise been the lowest interest rate the town had ever received, at least as far as I can tell. And to come in more than 20% lower than that is just really amazing. So I'll update the most recent chart. That's what we have now. So we have the low bar of 1.418%, and we'll enjoy those savings, and it will have a direct impact on moderating the tax rate increase, even below what the taxpayers were advised of when we went through the town meeting process in September for this project. This evening, the board will be asked to authorize the sale to the most advantageous bidder, and a document has been prepared for signature by the clerk. And then in the coming days, each and every board member will be asked to come to the town hall to sign off on the official documents for the sale of this bill. I'm happy to answer any questions of the board.
It's really excellent news, Mr. Kane.
Just a simple thank you, congratulations.
Madam
Any other
Chair.
comments? Mr. DiPaolo.
A joint congratulations and thank you, Mr. Mizikar, for first of all, getting us to our AAA rating and then maintaining it, especially in this climate. So you did an excellent job. It's really going to benefit the people of the community. And I think I speak for everybody when I say it. We appreciate all the work that you and the staff have done to get us to this point. It's really gratifying. So thank you.
Well said, Mr. DiPaolo.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Yeah.
I echo my colleague's sentiment. Great work, particularly in 2 years in a row, 2 ratings in a row. Just a quick question. What, if anything, does this provide, given the market, any other opportunities to refinance our outstanding indebtedness, given the favorable rates?
Yeah, the next opportunity, municipal bonds, unlike most common consumer financing and even mortgages, you can't prepay them. This is someone's investment that they're making in the town, and they, have a guaranteed tax-exempt interest rate that they'll earn from this. So it's only callable. You can only prepay it at certain times or refund it at certain times. So the next project that we have the opportunity to do that comes up in April, which would be for the Sherwood Middle School. And given the fact that, as I reported before, that there's a 3.59% interest rate on that, we will be looking to refinance that, which could yield a total lifetime's balance over the rest of that borrowing of another $1 million or so. So we are really finding some ways, given the economic climate, to take advantage of it and to lower the tax rate for the taxpayers.
Good work. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just to quickly echo, I mean, this is a glimmer of, some good news when we're not always hearing so much good news. But as members said, congratulations and thank you to the staff and, and truthfully to the board, the finance committee, the town meeting. I mean, the whole effort over all these years to get our bond rating into AAA status so we could enjoy these great rates.
I had the opportunity to sit in on that call, and it was just if I didn't already live here, I would have wanted to just move here because you listen to everything that's going on. And I think we get so caught up in the day to day, especially now when everything is so focused on doom and gloom and the pandemic, but to really just take a step back and appreciate all of the work that's been done, not just this year, but over time to build us to this point. It's just truly, it's true, small, consistent steps yield very impressive results over time. And I just am so grateful to the staff for everything that they've done to get us to this point. So thanks for that. All right. So that brings us to item number, no, we didn't vote.
Yep,
We haven't voted
we
yet.
gotta vote. Yep.
Back we go. Okay, so we need to vote on these bonds.
Okay.
Madam Chair, go ahead, Mr.
No,
LeBlanc.
no, no,
have
I'm digging out what I think this motion's gonna be, so
Yeah, there
please
is a motion
continue.
in our packet.
Madam Chair, while taking out, could I ask a question to Mr. Mizikar?
Sure.
Just a quick question, Kevin, on the pre-printed motion. Just the sale number of the 45.7 million, is that, I'm just trying to figure out the disconnect with the number you just provided to us. Is that the number it was, or what am I missing?
No, so that is net of principal or net of premium.
Okay,
So there was almost a $7 million premium associated with this. You'll notice whenever you're looking at that motion, you'll see things like interest rates of 5% down to 2%. And, it gets a little complicated whenever the market is this advantageous to the seller of the bonds. But, premium is basically the buyer is giving us more money than we ask for, which essentially means that on day one, instead of having required payments on a total principal amount for the police station of 37 million that we wanted, we're going to start at 32 million.
got it.
So, and then the interest rate can be higher, but the total interest cost or the TIC that I reported that we'll pay over the life of the bonds really is only 1.41%.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I mean, forgive me, all I'm seeing is a draft vote of the Board of Selectmen. Is the suggestion that that someone read it, or just say that we adopt the written document and authorize the clerk to sign it?
The latter.
Okay. Madam Chairman, are you ready for a motion?
Yes, I am.
Madam Chairman, I move that the Board of Selectmen take the various votes that are laid out relative to the borrowing for the police station and public safety communication as indicated on the document. There are various votes to be taken, and that the board authorize the clerk of the Board of Selectmen to sign the certifying document.
Second.
Okay, very good. Mr. LeBeau.
Aye.
Mr. Samia.
Aye.
Mr. DiPaolo.
Aye.
Mr. Kane.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Mr. Mizikar, are we all set, or are there any other votes associated with that?
There are no additional votes for the meeting, but
Okay.
we'll notify the board member once we have all final documents from bond counsel and have you come in and sign them later this week.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, item number 11 is to review and act on the town clerk appointment process. As we know, our longtime town clerk, Sandra Wright, will be retiring. So Mr. Mizikar, if you want to take us through the process for hiring a replacement.
Yep, Madam Chair, as we've discussed, in proposing a schedule, this is one of the positions within the town that is appointed by the Board of Selectmen, and therefore there is a public component to this, and the board will have to organize itself otherwise in both public and executive sessions, if you so choose, in order to carry out this process. Given that the town clerk has indicated that she will be retiring for the beginning of March, thought it was prudent to first post internally, as is a very common practice for the first week. from January 15th through the 22nd, and then for the Board of Selectmen to hold an executive session to review all those candidates that come in advance of your meeting on the 26th, and further determine whether you wish to post externally or move forward with internal candidates. And then, depending on which path you choose, go through the preliminary rounds of interview processes between the 27th of January and February 19th, and then conduct in public your final round interview of finalists at your your February 23rd meeting, so that there is a person in that role prior to retirement. So there could be options where you may get to the schedule a little bit sooner, depending on the candidate pool and the progression of interviews. But I think this is a reasonable schedule to ensure that you have someone in place prior to Ms. Wright's retirement.
Okay. Any questions from the board on this schedule?
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Kane?
not on the schedule, but who will chair this, you as chair?
You broke up a little bit on me. I'm sorry. Could you repeat
Yeah,
what
no
you
problem.
said?
Yes, certainly. Who will chair this effort on behalf of the board? As many people know, we only directly employ a handful of people. So every effort needs a leader. Are you going to chair this as you would our chair?
Yes, I believe so. And being relatively new to the board, I have not been through this process. And so I'm learning as I go with this as well. But yes, I would be chairing this process.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay, very good. So we need to vote on this.
Madam Chair,
Mr. LeBeau?
I move the board adopt the schedule for recruitment, interview, and potential hiring of a new town clerk as the manager is laid out in a proposed schedule, in his proposed schedule.
Second.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Mr. LeBeau?
Aye.
Mr. Samia?
Aye.
Mr. DiPaolo?
Aye.
Mr. Kane?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Item number 12 is to review and act to certify the number of town meeting members per precinct based on the 2020 town census as certified by the town clerk. So we have some information in our packet regarding the census numbers. They're a little bit lower than in the past, and that is what we are taking a look at this evening and how it's going to impact our meeting representation. Mr. Mizikar, did you want to further clarify?
Well, I might be stealing Mr. DiPaolo's hard work, as he's the one that kind of led the math initiative on this. But I'll just add for the public comment and then turn it over to him if that's okay, that this is why it's very important for folks to fill out their annual census. Every member who responds to that can have an impact on the total allocation of precinct or number of representatives for their various precincts for town meetings. So, and then this year we certainly saw a dip in precinct 9, which will have I think a pretty significant impact on the representation of that precinct. So.
And Mr. DiPaolo, you certainly did do quite a deep dive into this. And I would appreciate if you shared a little bit more information with the public.
Well, it's in the general bylaws, or actually in the Town Meeting Act, it spells out how town meeting members are to be allocated into the precincts. And it's all formula based. And it's based on dividing the, if I want to make sure I get this right, it divides the number of people in the precinct by, let me get this right. There's a calculation to assume you come up with a number that is calculated through the population and the amount of people in the town meeting you divide the total population by the number of town meeting members, and you come up with a multiplier that is this, in this case, it was 1.36.504. And you take that multiplier and you multiply it, or you divide it into it's divided by the number of residents in the precinct to come up with another calculation number that's then rounded off, and those numbers have to add up to 240. And if they don't, there's another process that you go through to allocate to meet the shortage. Like in this case, with the roundings per the formula, the number came to 239. In that case, there was an extra or an unallocated precinct member, and according to the bylaw, the calculation for the precinct that has the highest decibel number, in other words, the highest one right now, the calculation was 26.978. So that one, being the highest, is allocated that extra town meeting member. So what this all led to with the roundings and the remainders is that precinct 9, which census count dropped, actually loses 4 town meeting members in that precinct. And precinct 4 picks up 1. Precinct 7 picks up 1. And precinct 8, because of that rounding factor and the unallocated town meeting member, which they would get, they pick up an additional 2 town meeting members. So it's really all formula driven. I think Mr. Mizuka went through it and double checked it to make sure that we had it right. But that's where we are. So if you want, I can read what the number of town meeting members per precinct will be if you want.
I would, and I have to say, when I read that mathematical formula, it made my head hurt. So thank you for figuring that out. It's very confusing. Well done. And yes, I would like to know the number of town meeting members per precinct.
So precinct 7 will remain at 27. Precinct 2 will remain at 24. Precinct 3 will remain at 21. Precinct 4 will increase to 24. Precinct 5 will stay at 21. Precinct 6 will stay at 24. Precinct 7 will increase 1 to 29. Precinct 8 will increase 2 to 28. Precinct 9 will drop 4 to 18. And precinct 10 will stay at 24. And those numbers add up to 240. And they are proportional to the population in each precinct as provided by the census. So I think I got that all right.
I think you did too. Thank you for doing that. And so what will happen then in a precinct, say like precinct 9, where they need to reduce by 4?
So after we send this these numbers to the town clerk, when they prepare the ballot, it will say, in this case, well, it'll be 4 less. So it's 22, probably. I don't know if there was 7 or 8 up this year, but whatever there was that's up for this year, it's less that 4 town meeting member decrease. So I'm not sure what the exact number is. It's probably it could be either 3 or 4 will be up.
Yeah.
I imagine, depending how the rounding is set up.
Yeah,
You know,
Madam Chair, sorry, Mr. Paul.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say within the item 12, the 2001 letter to the clerk within your folder, there is a schedule that looks ahead from 2021 through 2024 in the election, and you will see there for precinct 9 that they would have had 8 members, 8 openings this year, and it is reduced down to 4. You know, precinct 8 would have had 9, and they're going up to 11. So the entire adjustment to get the members corrected all occurs within the first year after the certification.
Right. And
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that was clear to the public who might be thinking that maybe everybody in the precinct had to run again, and that's not the case.
no, as a matter of fact, unless the precinct lines are redrawn, which was not the case here, then only the people who are in that election cycle, that third that happens to come up like this year, that's the one with a number changes. Everybody else stays the same. The bylaw, and I guess the state law, only allows for it to change by if the precinct lines boundaries are redrawn. So that may happen after we get the final census numbers from this year. Next year, we might have to, depending on how that allocation breaks out again, and if the lines have to change, because you have to try to get them in balance. You're not supposed to deviate precinct by so much when you make that reset after the annual, the federal census. So could be some precincts will change, which means that everybody in the precinct's up because it's not the same precinct anymore. So it's a little more complicated, but we've been through it a couple of times. And the engineering department helps us, and it laying out those precincts works out pretty well. So anyways, that's the way it works. Everything happens this year.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. DiPaolo? All right, then we need to act to certify, vote to certify the numbers.
Madam Chair,
Mr. LeBeau.
I move the board certify the numbers of residents per precinct as presented in the document.
Second.
Okay, there's no further discussion. Mr. LeBeau,
Aye.
Mr. Samia,
Aye.
Mr. DiPaolo,
Aye.
Mr. Kane. And myself, aye. I don't know what's going on over there tonight. Okay, that brings us to item number 13, which is actually under correspondence. So item number 13 is a letter dated December 8th, 2020 from Nick Ropeka, Highway Division Manager, regarding the snowstorm report from December 5th, 2020. And because I always like to read the snowstorm report and let you all know how much it cost, total removal of snow for that storm was just about $54,000, a little bit more than that. And it was 6 inches of snow. So it was about $9,000 an inch. And the highway department did a great job cleaning up the roads from that. Item number 14 is a letter dated December 16th, 2020 from Marie Claire Rigby, National Grid, regarding the yearly operation plan and herbicide application notification. Item number 15 is an email dated December 21st, 2020 from Andrew Truman, Town Engineer, regarding the Puritan Street cul-de-sac land taking information meeting. Part of the Route 20 master plan, there was a discussion to make Puritan Street a cul-de-sac because it was serving to be quite a cut through. And there will be 3 residents affected by the creation of that cul-de-sac. So this is a session for them to understand what's involved in taking that land. Make that change. Item number 16 is a letter dated December 21st, 2020 from Dan Cordeau, Office of Leasing and State Office Planning, regarding the Commonwealth search for office space. Item number 17 is an email dated December 22nd, 2020 from Barbara Taylor, 14 Burncoat Terrace, Worcester, regarding policy questions related to COVID. Item number 18 is a letter dated from December 22nd, 2020 from Nick Repetka, Highway Division Manager, regarding the snowstorm report from December 16th to the 17th of 2020. You remember that was actually a bit of larger, was a larger snowstorm. That one was 12 inches of snow. And that cost, the estimate for removing that was $82,000 and at a cost of about $6,870 per inch. And again, the roads were in great shape, sidewalks were cleared. So we're very grateful to the work of the highway department. Item number 19 is an email dated December 23rd, 2020 from Sandra Fick, Chair of the School Committee, regarding the school department's FY22 budget. Item number 20 is an email dated December 25th, 2020 from Lynn Williams, 9 Woodbridge Court, North Grafton, regarding a foundation leak. Item number 21 is an email dated January 1st, 2021 from Shima Khan, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force, regarding resignation from the DEI Task Force. Ms. Khan notes that she had unforeseen circumstances that will prevent her from continuing on in her role on the task force. But we do thank her for her efforts. As the member of the board that sits on that task force, I can tell you that she made wonderful contributions. Her perspectives were extremely interesting. She was a high school teacher in another community, and so I always found what she had to say to be relevant and eye-opening. So I will definitely miss her conversation and her contributions. Item number 22 is an email dated January 5th, 2021 from Tatum Wilson, 305 Boylston Street, regarding noise pollution tractor trailers on Boylston Street. Item number 23 is an email dated January 5th, 2021 from Sandra Wright, Town Clerk, regarding the allocation of town meeting members. Item number 24 is an email dated January 6th, 2021 from Keith Elms, Animal Control Officer, regarding the quarterly warrant from October through December 2020. He was quite busy. Item number 25, email dated January 6, 2021 from Sandra Fick, Chair of the School Committee, regarding the January 6, 2021 School Committee meeting. And item number 26 is an email dated January 8th, 2020 from Anna Darrow, Office of State Representative Hannah Kane, regarding legislative update on the Transportation Bond Bill and Economic Development Bond Bill. And I will note that Representative Kane and Senator Moore will be at our next meeting to provide us with a legislative update. So that is all that we have. If there is nothing more to come before the board in open session, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. LaBelle,
Aye.
Mr. Samia,
Aye.
Mr. DiPaolo,
Aye.
Mr. Kane,
Aye.
and myself, aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you and good evening.
Evening.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you.
Good night.